The dredge should have been shut down 3 days earlier. Everyone on the crew understood that clearly. But Tony Beets never backs down, not for warning lights, not for worried team members, not for anything except his own unbreakable determination. And now, at 3 a.m. beneath a pitch-black Yukon sky, that stubborn resolve was about to cost him dearly. The mechanical disaster unfolds. It started as the faintest grinding noise, so quiet it almost disappeared into the usual thunder of engines, conveyor belts, and heavy steel. Most of the crew didn't register it amid the constant racket. But Kevin Hoffman caught it instantly. After 7 seasons as Tony's lead mechanic, he knew some sounds weren't mere cautions, they were final judgments, death knells masquerading as small annoyances. He tracked Tony down in the dredge's control room, surrounded by trembling metal walls and pulsing indicator lights. Tony was bent over production logs with the intense, laser-like concentration that had earned him respect throughout the Klondike. The dredge itself was a 60-ton antique, painstakingly rebuilt from junkyard parts and sheer stubbornness into the heart of his mining empire. "Boss, we have to kill the power now," Kevin stated plainly. "The main bearing housing is giving out." Tony didn't lift his eyes from the paperwork. "How long until it becomes critical?" "It already is critical. That noise is metal scraping metal. We're looking at maybe 12 hours, probably less, before total failure." Tony's Dutch accent grew thicker as he answered. "Then we've got 12 hours of digging left. We keep going until she breaks or we reach our daily quota." Kevin's jaw clenched. "If that bearing locks up, this isn't a quick fix. It's a complete drive replacement. 8 weeks at minimum. The repair bill could wipe out the entire season." Tony finally looked up. "If we stopped every time something rattled, we'd never recover an ounce. This machine has been running for 70 years. She can survive another 12 hours. That single choice captured Tony's entire philosophy: bold, calculated, convinced that equipment could be forced into submission through willpower alone. That approach had worked for decades, transforming a penniless immigrant into one of the Yukon's toughest and most successful miners. But standing in the shaking control room, Kevin had the sinking feeling their luck had finally expired. By midday the grinding had grown loud and obvious. The whole dredge trembled with every turn of the wheel. Crew members moved more carefully, tension visible in every careful step. Monica Beets climbed aboard, worry plain on her face. "Dad, half the guys are talking about quitting. They're afraid someone's going to get seriously injured." "Then let them walk," Tony answered without hesitation. "There are plenty of people who want these jobs." "That's not the issue," Monica pressed. "This pace isn't sustainable." "What isn't sustainable," Tony shot back, "is halting production every time conditions aren't perfect. We mine until the ground or the machinery forces us to stop, not a second sooner." But the machinery was already delivering its verdict. By evening the dredge was shaking violently. Tools slid off workbenches. At 8:47 p.m., the bearing gave way with a sharp, piercing metallic snap that rang across Indian River. The dredge jerked hard, smoke billowed from the housing, and every alarm shrieked at once. Tony stepped outside to find his crew standing motionless in stunned silence. The machine sat lifeless. Kevin's grim expression confirmed the damage was far worse than anyone had feared: the Emperor's overreach. To grasp how Tony reached this breaking point, you have to rewind to early spring, when the last ice was cracking and the new season lay ahead full of promise and pressure. Tony had called his family and key crew into the workshop at Paradise Hill, his main base, to lay out the plan. Maps covered every workbench, marking not only their established claims but fresh ground Tony had quietly secured over the winter. It was an aggressive expansion designed to lock in his status as the undisputed ruler of Klondike mining. "We're running 3 full operations at the same time this year," Tony declared, his tone carrying the certainty of a man who had built his empire through exactly this kind of bold scaling. "Paradise Hill stays at maximum output. We're launching the 60-mile claim with its own wash plant and dedicated crew. And we're relocating the dredge to a new stretch of Indian River, the richest section historical records have ever shown." Mike Beets, Tony's son and an increasingly important voice in the business, frowned at the maps. "Dad, that's stretching us dangerously thin. 3 crews, 3 separate setups, 3 times the logistical strain. That's also 3 times the gold," Tony countered. "And 3 times the evidence that no one else in this territory can match us." Monica raised her own worry. "What about maintenance windows? If we're juggling 3 sites, we don't have the mechanical backup to handle simultaneous breakdowns." "Then we make sure breakdowns don't happen," Tony said, as though failures were simply a question of resolve. "We've got the best gear in the Klondike. We run it hard, we run it smart, and we outproduce everyone else combined." That was classic Tony Beets, fearless, uncompromising, built on the conviction that his experience and gut instinct could conquer any mechanical or logistical hurdle. Yet beneath the confidence, his family was beginning to notice something else, a quiet desperation to prove he remained the dominant force in an industry where younger operators with modern tech were closing the gap. Parker Schnabel's setups grew more advanced every season. Despite challenges, Rick Ness had assembled a solid crew and reliable output. Even smaller outfits were adopting better techniques and equipment that challenged Tony's traditional methods. Now in his early 70s, Tony felt the pressure of time in ways he never voiced, but everyone close to him could sense it. Minnie, his wife and the financial anchor of the operation, pulled him aside after the meeting. "Tony, this expansion is going to stretch our resources to the breaking point. We need a cushion for surprises." "We'll have a cushion when we mine 3 claims worth of gold," he replied. "You handle the books. I'll handle the digging." But Minnie's concern came from cold financial reality. The new claims demanded huge upfront spending, leases, infrastructure, equipment. Tony had already committed nearly $2 million before a single flake reached the sluice boxes. It was an all-in bet that required near-perfect execution, or at least no major disasters. Warning signs appeared quickly. In June, the 60-mile wash plant suffered repeated electrical issues, forcing expensive fixes and lost time. In July, Paradise Hill's excavator threw a track, eating up a full week in costly replacement parts. Through it all, the dredge ran at full throttle, pushed harder than ever, because it was the only site consistently meeting targets. Kevin warned him repeatedly, "Boss, this dredge wasn't built for non-stop operation. We need planned downtime for maintenance. We'll maintain it when we hit season totals," Tony answered every time. By August, the cracks in the grand plan were impossible to ignore. Crews worked punishing hours keeping 3 sites alive. Mike grew more outspoken about the unsustainable pace. Monica spent more time handling crew grievances than overseeing mining. Minnie's financial reports showed costs rising faster than gold recovery, yet Tony pressed on, fueled by ambition, pride, and a deeper fear that easing up would mean admitting he was no longer the unstoppable force he had always been. In his mind, the answer to every obstacle was the same: work harder, push farther, extract more gold. That philosophy had created his empire, but it was failing now. And on that August evening, when the dredge's main bearing finally seized, the price of that failure was about to rewrite everything Tony Beets had spent 40 years building. If you'd like me to continue paraphrasing the rest, the rebellion, the family confrontation, the patriarch's burden, the reckoning, and the final resolution, just let me know, and I'll pick up right where this leaves off.